So for my country presentation, I chose the country of Japan. So in this image, you can see a map of Japan with some of its major cities: Tokyo, Hokkaido, Kyushu. And then this is like a map with its geography and such and topography. You can very see the mountain ranges really go down in the middle of Japan there, and then the separate islands expanding out. So, important events throughout Japan's history. In the year 200, 2500 and 300 BCE is when the first settlers appeared in the Jomon era, is I believe how it's pronounced. I forgive it if I am wrong. And then in the year 538 CE, or AD as we call it, Buddhism entered Japan. And then in the year 752 CE/AD, the Great Buddha at Nara is completed. And sorry, my can. And you can see there that uh, the Great Buddha is sorry. In the year 794, the capital city is moved from Nara, which is where the Great Buddha used to be, to Tokyo, Japan. Apologize, that is not capitalized. Sorry, that says Japan. In the year 1192 AD, the Kamakura shogunate government is formed. That's when Yoritomo is appointed the first shogun, which is like the leader, an emperor kind of thing. And in the year 1274, the Mongols, led by Kublai Khan, sorry I'm pronouncing these wrong, attempted to invade Japan but failed when a typhoon destroyed much of the Mongol navy. In the year 1336, the Ashikaga shogunate takes power. In the year 1549, Christianity is introduced by Francis Xavier. That is a painting of what Francis Xavier looked like. Then Japan is unified under the leadership of Toyotomi Hideyoshi, and he establishes the Edo shogunate in the year 1590. And in the year 1614, Christianity is banned and the priests are forced to leave the country. And then in the year 1707, Mount Fuji erupts. In the year 1854, Commodore Matthew Perry of the United States arrives in Japan and signs a treaty opening trade with Japan. And this ends a 200-year period of isolation. Then in the year 1868, Emperor Meiji takes over when the Edo shogunate loses power. The Empire of Japan is formed. Japan goes to war with Russia, winning and becoming a major world country. Then in the year 1914, World War I began, and then Japan joined the Allied powers to go up against Germany. And then 4 years later, in 1918, World War I ends and Japan gains a seat on the Council of League of Nations. And then 5 years later, the Great Kanto earthquake happened, destroying much of Tokyo and Yokohama. Then, from what typically where we start to learn about Japanese history in our modern day school systems, in 1941, Japan allies with Germany and attacks Pearl Harbor. In retaliation to that, the United States attacks Hiroshima and Nagasaki with nuclear weaponry, and it killed over 200,000 people in about 3 days. That is an image of the aftermath of Hiroshima. You can see buildings destroyed, evaporated, trees without their leaves. Then in 1968, it becomes the second largest economic power in the world, which is very incredible considering the attacks it was that were placed upon it. Then in 2011, as I'm sure many of us can remember, the earthquake that struck out the coast and the tsunami that hit Japan, destroying many areas that killed about 20,000 people. So in Japan, they have what is called a constitutional monarchy, where the empire's power is limited to mainly ceremonial duties. Their government, like ours, has three branches: executive, legislature, and the judiciary. each having similar powers as ours. The emperor is the head of the state and the imperial family. His position does not influence the activities of the government in any way. The prime minister, therefore, is the head of the government, and in 1947, the constitution was adopted in Japan and has not been amended since. Noble geographical changes. It is called a Shimiguni, which is like island country. It is covered in many mountains and rivers. The mountains are most of the time covered with lush forests and other such things, and as many rivers as there can be, only a few are navigable. It is not great for agriculture. As you can see, it is about 15% of the country is good for growing crops, and due to its location with plates, it is very common to receive earthquakes. In the image, you can see Mount Fuji and the beautiful cherry blossoms that are there. Climate change really affects the area because with the coast, heavy rains creates plenty of flooding with rising sea levels that destroys even more. And temperatures rising, it doesn't help that because the water evaporates much quicker, which means more heavy downpour, which means more flooding with the rising sea levels already. And due to rice being the major food source in Japan, it can be, with rising temperatures and such, it becomes less nutritious and is not able to grow as quickly or as much. So it won't be able to be used as their food source mainly. And then Japan also seems to be faced with a large decline in fish. In their food, a lot of their food is more of the traditional and is I believe it is uncooked most of the time. It typically stays towards the more raw, not adding tons and tons of seasonings at times. They prepare it in small, delicate sections. The seafood and sushi is globally recognized. And in the street, there's a lot of times ramen, udon, different types of small food street vendors that are available. The typical dress is the kimono, typically seen worn by women, as you can see in the picture. It's tied with a belt called an obi, and it's very easy to wear, but it can limit your movement. Younger children, they will wear whatever. Typically, in their calm down times, will wear t-shirts and shorts. Men, typically seen wearing suits as they're going to or from work. The family life there is very hierarchical. So the men of the house, the oldest men of the house is typically the leader, since it's a typically two-generational house. Typically, he's like the grandfather of the house. The Kioxi is the official family registry, and education is a very critical part to their family lifestyles. Some things that are unique to Japan is the beautiful Mount Fuji, like I've previously stated, the authentic food that you could find there, the chaos murals, which you can see in the image there, and there's also a museum dedicated completely to the cup of noodles. What can you do in Japan though is you're able to take Japanese cooking classes, like authentic Japanese cooking. You're able to ride on the bullet train there, which you can see in the bottom image. There's many shrines dedicated to the older religions or current religions that are in Japan. Walk through a true bamboo forest of naturally growing bamboo. Stay in a capsule hotel, which is a hotel where you like have your own little space, and that's it. It's very interesting. Travel through the Nakasato Trail, which is what connected two parts of the area, and they connected to Tokyo, and you can go scuba diving in the waters. So the questions is, how does has the impact of Hiroshima and Nagasaki affected the modern world view on nuclear warfare, as we can see now, especially with what's happening in Russia and Ukraine, and how much of the culture stayed in Japan the same, even with modernization? And those are my resources. Thank you.